For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
So, Russ, ever since Crystal mentioned that croissant donut peanut butter filled thing,
Yeah, have you tried it?
I've been wanting it, and I got one here, and man, it is good.
They are delicious.
It is good. And that's good because the last one that was filled with peanut butter was gross. It was disgusting. This is almost worth the boutique donut price.
You know, I have to advocate for the chocolate pretzel donut, which is the chocolate cake donut with pretzels on top. It's got the salty sweet thing going on. Speaking of salty and sweet, is that Geoff Engelstein in the corner over there? Jeff.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Wow, what are you doing here?
Oh,
he just killed me with a segue. I felt like I just got run over by a Segway.
Hanging on Dunkin' Donuts. Here in, the Dunks near Cambridge, we always figure to run into you here because you like to hang out at MIT so much. So how you been?
I've been good. How are you guys
doing well.
We've been fine.
What's your favorite donut,
Russ
Jeff?
Russ is a little free with his segues, but other than that,
well, you gotta
I'm
practice.
glad to see the
things.
level of professionalism on the show is as high as I recall.
It's exactly where we left it, somewhere in Albuquerque. So, yes. So what do you like at Dunks, Jeff? What's your favorite donut and coffee beverage?
Well, normally I go for the jelly filled with the hot cocoa on the side.
Nothing wrong with that.
But it's still actually Passover here for one more night, so I brought in a banana split to enjoy here.
Okay, I'm not really sure. Okay, that's sacrifice. Somehow I'm still working my math on that, but okay. By the rules of engagement, I think you're legal, so that's fine. I thought you were going to say like kale or something, and be good.
No.
So, Jeff, I've been watching, we're friends on Facebook. I see your posts every once in a while, and I noticed you've been mentioning a lot in social media about all this VR stuff, virtual reality. You've been playing around with it. And I want to take the plunge because, when I was younger, I was always on what I considered to be sort of the cutting edge of technology. But now that I'm an old man, I look at that and I'm like, I'm just going to barf. Like, I'm just going to throw up if I try any of this VR stuff. But you've been trying it, so like, were you just like, I'm going to try this? What did you see as compelling about virtual reality? Like, I've been wanting to ask you this for a while now because I've been watching all your activity. What kind of drew you in?
Well, I'm kind of a tech head too. I like to try all different stuff and things like that. So, when the first VR stuff came out, I mean, I did my first VR experience years and years and years ago at a science museum with, a giant headset, and it was just single color, and you were in like a maze. It wasn't really much going on. But I've always been really fascinated by it. And so when the first Oculus development kit, Oculus Rift DK2 came out, the development kit unit, I immediately jumped on that and said, I got to get something. I also was looking for a project just to mess around with Unity, the game programming system. I do some programming occasionally. And so I just wanted to see what it was all about. And I'd heard such good things about it that I wanted to get it. I got it a couple years ago, and I just really thoroughly enjoyed using it. There wasn't a huge amount of content, but even though stuff that there was really impressive. But I still got motion sickness from that.
Yeah.
Because
my experience with it has been.
Can be, but
I tried it at Disney Quest or something a long time ago. Right, they had this thing where you could put it on your head, and you were kind of like in this sort of jet bike situation, but you're actually flying on the magic carpet from Aladdin, and you'd fly around Agrabah, right?
Right.
And I just got it was cool for like 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden I got really, really nauseated and like had to stop. And it's been my experience whenever I try it. And so I'm wondering, have they figured that out yet? Or is it still one of those things where you can do it for 15 minutes and you have to stop?
Well, I'll tell you, I tend to be prone to motion sickness even without the VR. Yeah. I mean, like if I play like Unreal Tournament, I went back to Unreal Tournament or Call of Duty or, stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Overwatch, not as much, but certainly those games, and even like The Witness, that puzzle game.
Yeah, really.
I've gotten motion sickness playing that just in front of a screen. Okay. So I tend to be a little prone to motion sickness. When I got the Oculus DK2, there was some stuff. There was like this one roller coaster simulator that was great. I didn't have any issues with it at all. It was just you were sitting in but it was like inside a mine, and you would go around, and it was lava. It was lava rooms and stuff like that. I didn't have an issue with that. But like I did Team Fortress 2, they had Team Fortress VR.
Yep.
Right? I tried that. I lasted literally 12 seconds before I had motion sickness issues. Right. Okay. But then some stuff I found in general, stuff that was like in cockpits. Like I tried Elite Dangerous, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit.
Yep.
I didn't really have any issues with that. That's a space flying simulator where you're like a space fighter. But then about a year later, I got the commercial version, the CV unit, and of the Oculus Rift. And with that unit, I have 99% of the stuff that I do not have any problems. And I've played for like an hour or 2 hours at a stretch.
So do you think it's
there are certain games that will still cause me problems, but it's usually the fault of the game. They don't. There's like a mismatch there between the movement. They just don't handle it properly. Right. But the games that follow their guidelines, I've been very impressed with it.
Interesting. So do you think it's like an uncanny valley that your brain detects, but you don't really notice? Like, is it the frame rate being a little off, or the movement's not quite synchronized?
If you move your head and it doesn't, and the scene takes a second to catch up to it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Okay.
But they do some stuff now where they like fade out certain areas. Like as you turn your head, it'll kind of dim the display a little bit and things like that, or blur things. So it does stuff to kind of trick your brain now too.
Oh, cool. So kind of like your peripheral vision's less accurate. They kind of emulate peripheral vision kind of thing to keep it. Well, that's clever.
Right. And we had a party at this is usually the way my parties end, but we had a party at our house once with the DK2, and like half the people left nauseous because they were trying it. And Susan was like, never do that at one of our parties again. This is horrible. But I've had many people try the new one, the Oculus Rift CV, and I haven't had anybody have motion sickness problems.
So
I would definitely give it a shot.
Cool. Well, now you've got me real interested, because I do not get sick playing just playing a first person shooter or whatever on the screen. I can play just about anything and not get sick there, but I do get. But I do have the problem with VR. So that sounds like they may have gotten past some of these things. And have you stuck just with Oculus brand, or have you tried any of the other flavors, like the Steam version?
I have just on the Oculus. Yeah, I have not. I have not done it. I was out at the GDC, the Game Design Conference out in San Francisco back in February, and they had a ton of VR in the exhibit areas. I did not get a chance to try one of the others, but I think that they're all pretty comparable.
Yeah, because I think the three big ones, right? There's Vibe, which is it Vibe? I think it's
except for the ones from the cell phones, like the Google Cardboard.
Oh yeah, those are kind of
because the motion sensing again is not that good.
Yeah. So the three big ones I think that I know of: Oculus. Then I think Vibe is the one that works with Steam, and then PlayStation's got theirs too, right?
Correct. So those are the biggies, and there's this. The Samsung one, which is basically the Oculus Rift in a different package.
Right. Cool. So now that you figured out, hey, I can do this. What games have you been playing? What do you like? What do you recommend for someone? If I'm like, okay, I listen to Geoff. It sounds like these things won't make me vomit. Which game should I get with my starter pack?
There's a
ringing endorsement
right there.
VR. You won't barf often, right?
Won't barf often. So a couple of things. So, and it depends on the equipment. I mean, that's the thing, at least with the Oculus. I know that the HTC comes with other stuff in PS4, but in the Oculus, if you just buy the base unit, you just get like an Xbox pad, like a controller. You don't get the touch controller, so you can't move your hands and stuff. It doesn't know where your hands are in space. It's just the headset. Then separately, you can buy the touch pad, the touch controllers.
Right.
So the headset's about $400, and the touch controllers are like another $200. Although I think they just came down in price for the bundle. But it's about $600 if you want to go all the way for the touch controllers.
And then you need a really high-end system too, right? You can't just plug this into your existing gaming rig and expect everything.
Yeah, I actually had to upgrade my video card when I got it. I had to yank out my old card and put it in. So yeah, it's an investment. I mean, if you've got a decent computer gaming rig, it should do it.
Okay.
But you certainly need you may have to upgrade it. So that's something you got to look at. In terms of getting Oculus ready, which can also mess you up if your system's choking on trying to put out frames. That's going to make
but that's a good tip, right?
So
that's a really good tip then. So you don't want to do this on the cheap, because even if it does sort of work, if there's any lag or frame rate issues, you're definitely not going to enjoy it and you're going to get sick. So you're better off if you're going to do this,
wasted all that money.
and you're going to waste all the money anyway because you got to drop
Right.
$600, $800 depending what you get. So you might as well go. You got to be all into this, right, to really make it make sense.
So one of the games I've been really impressed with, and I am lousy at platformers, but one of the games that comes packaged with it, if you don't have the touch controllers, is this game called Lucky's Tale.
Okay.
Where you just play this little fox and you run around and you're jumping on cubes and it's all the standard Mario 64 type stuff, right? But you're in this world. You're just sitting in your chair. It's very forgiving in terms of motion sickness, and you're just following your guy around. But you can like peek around corners, and there's some things you have to like notice in order to be able to, get some of the secrets. And it's just so charming and just such a different experience to be in the middle of the platform world and just viewing it through a screen. You don't think it's going to be that big a difference on the platformer, but it's a huge difference, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that game.
Now,
so if you get a chance to just demo that just comes with it for free.
So I've seen people talk about games like this, and it's interesting because I guess it must really be compelling. Are the graphics super high end, or did they generally go a little lower end to keep the frame rate high? Like, are you talking about sort of like not last gen, but not like current gen high end graphics? You're talking probably like a half gen back.
I would say I would say down a little bit. I mean, this one is very cartoonish.
Sure.
So you don't see that, but in some of the other games I'll talk about that, you definitely do notice that sometimes, and they'll try to, they'll try to downplay it a little bit just to make it. But another game I played, which I really enjoyed, I haven't fully played through a game like this in a while, is this game called Edge of Nowhere, which was the first big like AAA release for the Oculus. That they were really touting this, and so I figured I'd give it a shot. And it's interesting because it's sort of a stealth shooter, sort of. You crash land in Antarctica. It also had the biggest jump scare in the opening cutscene. They're just opening titles that literally made me fall out of my chair. And I had my daughter do it, and she ended like on the ground, like just facing on the ground. And I was like, because you're just like in the middle of this jungle. And anyway, but eventually you crash land a plane in Antarctica.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the game, you're outside and you have to like run across chasms and climb up these ice walls and, jump over these gaps. And eventually, which is pretty neat. And eventually you find your way into, it's all with gamepad. It's all with a gamepad.
Right.
You eventually find your way into these caverns and you start running into these monsters, and they're kind of these Cthulhu-esque creatures ultimately that are, and you have to find the big bad Cthulhu guy and destroy him before he unleashes havoc on the world. So we've all done it 1,000 times.
Right.
At least I have. I don't know if Craig has, but I have.
Once or twice.
But it's just so different when you're in these caves, right? And, first off, just the regular bad guys, right? These regular Cthulhu slime monsters that are running around, right? It's one thing when it's on the screen, and it's another thing when they are literally right up in your face and you're swinging an axe at them,
So it works. So you feel like you're there. What you're saying?
Oh, you totally feel like you're there, and you're really, it's much more in terms of upping, like, where you look with your head is where your flashlight shines, right?
Right.
So you totally just like turn your head and you catch something in the flashlight beam all of a sudden, and it's just, or something's behind you.
Yeah, I feel like that would freak me out in a good way.
So it's a little bit freaky, and you get used to it after a while. But then at one point, you face one of the bosses, and it's like a War of the Worlds type giant walker type thing, but it's like a giant spider type thing that's like 10 stories tall.
Right. Oh, wow.
And again, we've all fought those kind of, we play, it's Half-Life 2 has those guys, it's a similar kind of a thing, right? Except literally you walk out of the cave onto this platform, and this guy is there, and you look up, and he is, 100 feet tall above you with this giant leg of stone coming down at you. It's a very, very different experience. I just immediately grabbed Brian. I was like, you have to try this. Take a look at this. This is so unbelievable, because in a video game, we've all done this before, but never like this, where you really feel, it's a whole different perspective, literally, on facing these big giant monsters that are out to kill you than just having it sit there on a 17-inch or a 20-inch or whatever screen.
So you're saying the immersion really works. You're really immersed it feels like you're there in every way. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Which is one of the negatives, in that you are totally in this world and nobody else can really participate in it. It usually throws it up on the monitor too, the image, so other people can see it, but it's actually more motion sicknessy for them because it's so jittery, because every time you move your head, the screen bounces around. So you're just very isolated. You know, a lot of times you can like, I'll play games with the kids, you know, and you'll sit there and you'll all work through it, whatever. And you absolutely can't do that with the VR.
And have they got to the point yet where you can do multiplayer VR? Like if you had multiple systems, could Brian be there with you fighting the giant Martian boss?
And seeing you if he looks at you?
Yeah.
They have done it. There is a head-to-head, like a magical fighting game.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them, and where you can fight other players. So yeah, I have not tried it. Well, I've tried it, but never with people that I know. It's just like people across the world.
Just random people.
So there are ways to do that. But it's still, you know, it's not the same as like just all sitting on a couch.
Yeah. So it's not doesn't have the social component yet, but it does sound like it has a very immersive component, which is awesome. That sounds really cool.
Yes. Yeah. So that's really cool. And just two other quick things in terms of games that I've played that I need to. So first is, and again, so one of the games I mentioned before is this Elite Dangerous.
Yeah. Now I'm a big fan of Elite. I played Elite, you know, the non-VR version.
Okay.
Which is like a super deep, you know, space exploration / trading / combat, you know, thing.
Yeah. So in the VR one, you're literally in the cockpit and you can look around your ship, and like if you lean in, it's got like these little pop-up holographic displays.
Yep.
Like if you lean into a display, all of a sudden when you get close enough to it, it pops up the little hologram display.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
You can get close and read stuff. You can look behind you, and you know again, you're kind of isolated. So there's a lot of complicated keystrokes and stuff like that if you do a keyboard one. But I have a HOTAS system, a hands-on throttle and stick system, a jet fighter kind of a thing.
Yes. Yep.
So if you map all that, first off, the display in the cockpit of Elite is a HOTAS system. So you see your hands on the controls, and it matches what your brain is thinking because it's on the same controls on your desk.
Does it have the same number of buttons as your HOTAS? Does you have the same exact?
Yes.
Wow,
it's
that's
the same
awesome.
setup. So as you push stuff, it's like it all triggers and everything, which is very, very cool.
Oh, that was super immersive. That's awesome.
So it's very immersive. And the first time I was in the cockpit, and you start in a little hangar deck, and the first thing is you come is like a little elevator that lifts up and brings you into the main area of the space station, and then you got to fly out of the inside of the space station.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming. I mean, it just like came up and you're like, oh my God, I'm in a space station and I can look up and around, and there's a glass cockpit. So you can look around outside the cockpit, and then you fly out through the rotating gate.
Yeah.
And then you go into warp drive, and it feels like warp drive, and then people are attacking you. And like, you know, I first played X-Wing versus TIE Fighter in 1982, right?
Back in the day, right?
But now I can see the people flying over my head, and I look over my head and I look behind my shoulder, and I see them like circling around behind me, and I'm yanking it around, and it's totally like being in a movie.
Now, let me ask you this, so that sounds amazing, and I get what you're saying, which is we've all done these things before, but it's just another level when you're fully immersed, which is awesome. But how long is the play session can you handle? Like, you know, I got to feel like this sort of, I know it's not super heavy anymore, but there's still this thing on your head. Can you play like a game like Elite Dangerous, or when we used to play X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, right? That's a game you could play the missions of that thing for like 4 hours straight. You're probably not doing that with VR nowadays, right? I mean, is that something? Can you sit down for 4 hours and play Elite?
I've done maybe an hour or two, something like that. And the problem with Elite Dangerous, actually, as it is a VR game, is that it has these kind of long travel times sometimes between the planets.
Yeah.
And if I'm playing on just a regular monitor, right, I can sit there and I can look at my phone, I can scribble on a pad, you know, I can do stuff while I'm traveling to another planet. I can turn around and talk to my wife. Right. If I'm sitting in space with this headset on,
you're stuck.
I can't do it. I'm stuck. I'm sitting there. I'm just looking around the cockpit, and I'm just like double checking my systems and making sure my loadouts are correct, and you know, looking up the auction prices at another planet that I'm flying to, and you know, stuff like that. But you know, that loses a little interest for a while. So that's why actually I have mostly stopped playing Elite Dangerous, because there's so much of that downtime. And downtime when you're playing a non-VR game, you can totally do other stuff and engage in other ways. In a VR game, you have to be in it all the time.
So that's an interesting little game design information. So it's not necessarily true that even though VR adds to the Elite experience, you kind of want to design the game from the ground up for VR, because the player needs to be constantly engaged, right? Because otherwise,
as it turns out, if you're in spending 3 hours in a single man cockpit flying from one planet to another planet in deep space, is not all that exciting.
So they've actually successfully simulated that, Jeff. It sounds like they've
completely simulated. Yes,
right. A lot of hurry up.
The verisimilitude is overwhelming.
Nice. Are there
So
any
the other game,
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
final game I will talk about, which is my absolute number one marquee game with a bullet
Yeah.
that does everything right in VR except for one thing,
Okay.
which hopefully they can fix, is Super Hot VR.
Ooh, so what's that like?
Okay. So this needs the touch controllers. So that's like I said, with some of them come with it. I think the PlayStation comes with it, but for the Oculus you have to buy them separately. But they work fantastically. You can like move your hands, you can grab things. It tells which fingers are on the controllers or not. So it keeps track of your hands in space. So Super Hot, there was an original game Super Hot, and they revamped it, but using the same core mechanic as Super Hot VR. So the idea is it's very abstract. So you're in these environments that are mostly white. There's like desks and tables and chairs and things you can hide behind and stuff like that. And then you're being attacked by these bad guys that are like these red crystal mannequins. They're very abstracted again. They just look like, mannequins from an art studio. But they have weapons, or they have knives, or they're just trying to punch you, and you have access to weapons and things like that around you. And you're just trying to kill them all to move on to the next level. And anything that touches them, they die pretty much.
Right.
But the key mechanic in the game is that the time only moves in the game when you move. Okay. So if you move really slowly, they move really slowly. If you move fast, they move fast. If you just freeze, everybody freezes, and you can kind of look around and get a feel for where everybody is and what's going on.
Now, when you're moving, since you're using the hand controllers, do you have to walk to move, or do you?
I am in the middle of my room. I'm walking around. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm walking around. Like
So it's sensing your body's movement and your hands movement. And if you move your
yeah.
arms a little bit, does that count as time passing?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you got to have really good control. It sounds like a little bit of like yoga style workout.
It's got a little Tai Chi thing going on.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, I mean, but if there's like if there's a container or something, a crate, I can dive behind it and they won't be able to shoot me. And then I have to pick my head up and peek over the top of it or something like that.
That's awesome.
And
Have you had anybody videotape you when you were doing this?
I have not, but I should do it. I will say that I have where my setup is. It's in my office here, and I have some windows, and I have punched the windows.
I was going to ask,
4 times.
have you collided with a wall as you dive behind a box or anything?
Yeah, it does. It does. You can walk in to set it up, not just the whole Oculus system. You can set up that you walk the perimeter of your room
So it warns
in the
you.
beginning to set it up, and as you get close, it puts up like these blue walls to show you that you're getting close to
Oh,
the edge.
wow.
But when someone's trying to shoot you in the head, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
Anyway,
No.
but the thing about it
Adrenaline
is it
takes
just
over.
creates some crazy ninja moments because, like, I had a situation once where when you shoot somebody, if they have a gun, if you kill them, they throw their gun up in the air because why not?
Right.
So I had like one guy charging me. Okay, I picked up a bottle, I threw it at him.
Yeah.
Like literally threw it at him.
Right.
It hit him in the head with the bottle. He explodes into 1,000 pieces. His gun goes flying up into the air. I grab the gun out of midair, jump up, grab the gun, spin around, and shoot 2 guys that are attacking me from behind.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's just those kind of moments. And it's just, I mean, I've set so many people up to play this game, and everyone just gets so into it. It's
So that's
really
the,
just changes
that's the
people's
killer
lives.
app. Now, does that,
That's the killer app.
and that one you're moving when you move, so you're literally jumping up in the air, making the hand motion to
I
grab
had
the
that
gun,
game,
turning
I'm like
around.
in a sweat.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is such a workout.
Now,
'Cause
how
you're
long
literally, yeah, jumping and right, yeah.
how long can you play that one for before you get tired?
I can do it for like an hour. The problem with that game, which is from a game design standpoint, is that it groups the levels into like 4 stages that you have to go through, and then it kind of locks your progress. But
Yep.
like if you get to stage 4 and you fail, you got to go all the way back to stage 1 and
Oh,
do that
it's
again.
Not
So when you get to the
progressive.
higher levels, there's just a lot of repetition.
Yeah.
At least for me, who's not very good. Maybe
Right.
other people are better at it, but just after a while, I get bored. It's like, I got to go back and do that. If I just had to do the same level over and over again,
Right.
I wouldn't feel as bad.
Right.
But having to go back to a level which I finally beat that level 3,
Right.
and then I get to 4 and I lose to that, and I got to go all the way back to 1 again, and then I got to try to beat 3 and worry about that. So that's the only negative from a design standpoint.
Yeah, it's the old school
That kinda
arcade
stopped
model.
me.
You start from the beginning again.
But I
Yeah.
haven't had any issues with motion sickness there. But
Well,
again,
that's interesting.
it's very abstract. Like I said, there's not a lot of detail in the world. It's mostly just white and shades of white and reds and blacks, right? So those types of things I think tend to translate, more cartoony. Don't try to be super realistic. Right now, those games I think translate best in terms of performance and comfort level.
Cool. Now you'd mentioned, so that's awesome. So that mentioned a little exercise there. So most of the games you describe are pretty much you're either sitting on your couch or you're mostly stationary, except for super hot VR there.
Yes.
Are there? And I noticed you on your Facebook feed, you were talking about you do have an exercise bike that somehow ties into the VR. How does that work?
Well, I like gadgets, as I guess has become clear. So I heard that the group was coming out with this out of Massachusetts, actually called Verzoom, which is a bike that hooks up to your Oculus Rift, and I think it works with a couple of the other ones too. I think it works with the Sony PlayStation. But it's just an exercise bike. You have to have the headset already.
Okay.
But you pedal, and it has controllers on the handlebars, triggers and stuff on the handlebars. And it just comes with all of these games that you can play. So there's one that's just like riding a bike through the French countryside. There's one where you're actually driving a race car. There's one where you're flying a helicopter trying to shoot down targets and stuff like that. And, with all of them, the faster you pedal, the faster you go. Or, there's one where you're like driving a tank and you're trying to drive around the countryside and pick off the other tanks and stuff like that. So, but you have to constantly pedal. So it's a way to get exercise while, hopefully being a little bit more engaging. So
you're distracted.
It's been fun. I've had it for about 3 months and I continue to use it a couple of times a week. So which is better than I've done with most of the exercise equipment.
There you go.
Do you find now, do the pedals have variable resistance feedback? So like when you're going up a hill, does it get harder to pedal? When you go down a hill, does it get easier?
It doesn't have that yet. Hopefully they'll be working on that right now. I mean, there's a knob in front that you can turn to, kind of simulate it if you really want to. But yeah, right now, and that's a little bit weird the first time you do it and you start going up a hill and you get ready to pedal harder, and you don't have to. So, but that's really the only negative that I've seen for it so far.
That's good. Any other cool exotic controllers that have been neat?
Well, I did get Rock Band VR.
How's that? I was a huge Rock Band fan. Does it translate well to VR?
No. People have been loving it. I keep reading all these glowing reviews, but they changed the mechanic of it. First of all, It's this weird cord thing, so you can never lose, and it's just like play, and maybe you'll get points, and maybe you won't, but just have fun. But there's also some weird sound things, like you hear yourself much louder than the whole song, so it doesn't feel like you're with that. But it's fun being on stage, and you see your band behind you, and you can jump around the stage, and that when you play standing up with holding your guitar. And your guitar, it knows where your guitar is in space. So as you you can headbang and swing your guitar in different ways for bonus points and stuff like that. So It's fun.
That's cool. But it sounds like they changed the core mechanic, which makes it so if you were a Rock Band fan, it would kind of throw you off a little bit.
You can play classic mode, but not on stage, just as a separate little side thing.
Cool. Well, before we run out of time, I did want to ask you about Ghostbusters VR.
Yes.
So what was that about? I saw you tweeting you did that or something.
Sound good.
No. This is the future. This is very good. I was really okay. So Madame Tussauds Wax Museum.
Yes.
In New York City, in Times Square, tourist capital of the world, for some reason decided to open a VR exhibit because the Wax Museum, it's all about motion and movement and action.
Right.
So
it's a good combo. It's a complementary.
Right. But I heard really good things about this, that they put in this new VR type experience. And so, I grabbed everybody, and Susan's always game to try this stuff. So I was like, let's go and let's try it. So we went, and I was just totally blown away by this thing. So it's, so you've got the different levels of VR. So there's the VR where you're just sitting in your chair, or sitting on your bike or whatever, and using your controller, right? So that's like level 1 VR. Then level 2 is with the touch controllers, where you're full room VR, where you're running around a room.
Right.
Okay. And then, so this is level 3. So what this is you go in, and it takes up to, it's like 4 people, takes up to 4 people at a time. And you go in and you put on the whole VR headset, and you have a gun, a proton pack, and the Ghostbuster gun, and you put on a backpack. Okay. But the gun's just a piece of black plastic.
Right.
Okay. But when you put the headset on,
the gun now glows and does all that stuff.
The gun it's an animated, Ghostbusters proton gun with stuff firing out of it and stuff like that. And when you look at the other people in the room with you, okay, they look like they're wearing the Ghostbusters outfit, but their heads are in the right space and their arms are in the right place where they're supposed to be and stuff like that. So Susan is not very tall. I could always tell it was her because she was the shortest one in the bunch. And we're all wearing the Ghostbusters jumpsuits.
Now, do you see Susan's face, or do you see a Ghostbusters animated face?
No, you see just like an animated face.
Got it. Okay.
So everything is cartoony. It's not like AR where you're superimposing the graphics on the real world. Okay. So then they say, okay, you're ready to go. And a door opens, right? You're in a little room, and then a door opens, and they give you a little briefing. But when the door opens, you walk through the door, but you're basically walking through a series of rooms, like a movie set, sort of, with actual walls and stuff like that. So when you walk through the door, you can reach out with your hand and touch the door jamb. Okay. And the VR door jamb that you see in space in your goggles matches where you grab it, where the wall is.
So it's kind of like True Dungeon meets VR, right? So they've laid out a space with walls and other obstacles that match the VR you see in your headset. So it feels realistic because you walk and everything's planned out to map, right?
You walk into an apartment and you walk into a living room, and there's like a chair in the middle of it, like an overstuffed armchair. And I like bumped into it. I was too busy looking around the room, and I didn't see the chair, and I walked right into it, and I crashed into it in real life. And I looked down, and there was a VR armchair in front of me.
Oh wow, that's
which
cool.
kind of blew me away. And then the ghosts start coming in the room, and they're flying around, and you have to shoot them with your gun.
Right.
And we're all firing, and as you fire, it shoots the beams, the energy beams, and everything. And I'm just start giggling like
a scoring the walls and everything. That's awesome. And now, did you manage not to cross the streams, or did you accidentally cross the streams?
Well, you may have to cross the streams at one point to do something, but now, not to give away too much of it. But you go through like 4 or 5 rooms. You go into an elevator, and it like shakes and opens up onto different floors, and different things happen. You get slimed, and all kinds of stuff goes on. But at one point, you're in this room, and there's an explosion, and you actually have to go outside the building onto the ledge.
Yeah.
And actually onto like a window washer's catwalk, right? And then all these ghosts start attacking you from the Empire State Building, which you see off in the distance.
Right.
Now, I'm not great with heights, okay?
Oh, yeah, right.
And so I happen to be standing right next to the wall that blew open, and we had to go outside. And so I look out there, and I realize what's going on, and my brain is completely not happy about this at all. But I just like pull myself together. I'm like, okay, it's you're just inside. You're going to be, you're on the floor. You're just on the floor in the museum. You're not actually standing outside the edge of the building.
Right.
And the teammates, you have radios also. You have headsets, so you can talk to each other.
Yeah.
So the other people are like, go on outside, go. And I'm like, look, I will go when I am ready to go.
Now, do they have fans and everything blowing so you feel like, are you feeling
I go
the
outside and there's fans blowing, and I found out later because I later interviewed the guy from the company because I was so impressed. I had him on Ludology for an interview. But you're actually standing on a platform that's literally suspended 2 inches above the floor, but it shakes, right? It's like moves back and forth as you're walking on it. And just all of that together just completely freaked me out. And there was a railing, fortunately, which again was a real railing and a VR railing. So I held on the railing with one hand, and I shot the ghost with the other hand with the gun. Yeah. And I was just like, this is so realistic. And, you think about the theme park rides, like you go to Disney and you go to these other places. If they want to change one of those rides up, millions and millions of dollars, right? It's a major undertaking. But this, I'm sure if you walk through this thing without any glasses on,
it's probably
it's some pieces of drywall and a couple of pieces of furniture strewn around. It's just software. I'm doing it in quotes, which I know is complicated, but it's not as bad as what they have to go through to like change the Harry Potter Wizarding World ride or something.
That sounds awesome. So do you think this is the future of theme park entertainment? Do you think you're going to see more of these things floating around?
I can't imagine that you won't. Just the way that they can tweak it and turn it over and stuff like that. I mean, I think they may have some issues with reliability on the equipment, and it's slow to get people through it because you got to get everybody suited up and yada, yada, yada. But, once they get over those hurdles, I can't imagine that this isn't going to start to spread to more places.
Well, and that solves what you mentioned earlier, which is it gives you the multiplayer aspect, right? Because you're now having a cooperative experience, or you could also imagine like it's the next level of laser tag, right? Or anything like that. It's the same.
It would be awesome as laser tag.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Because you could do so much in terms of effects and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Imagine if you all look like Halo
Armor. Talk to each other, you got to cross the stream. So there's definitely things you have to do.
Yeah, very cool. Well, that sounds awesome, Jeff. Now you got me excited to try that. And now
come next time you're in New York, man. I will take you.
We got to do this.
Wow.
And we should, we could do that. That's got to be a thing, Craig. We got to go down there and do a road trip to Jeff's house and hang out and play Ghostbusters. I think it's a thing.
Tell me when.
Okay, excellent. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here in Salty and Sweet Dunkin' Donuts. We really appreciate it.
My ice cream has completely melted. I've been talking so much, I have neglected my eating. So I will now go home with a milkshake.
If only you were in virtual reality, we could reset your ice cream. That'd be great. So
reset.
So, Jeff, thanks again. We'll see you on the main show here in about a week. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent.
Can't wait to talk about your business.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.